This is My Alpha Husband Owned Me Until I Read the Contract by Rene's Romance Stories. We were married, bonded, marked, legally registered in 3 jurisdictions and 1 underground pack council. So tell me why I found my name listed under Asset Class, Controlled, in my husband's latest contract. If you believe love shouldn't come with fine print, hit subscribe, because this is the story of how my alpha tried to protect me and learned exactly what happens when an Omega reads the terms. I didn't find the contract because I was suspicious. I found it because I was bored. That's the humiliating truth of it. Ethan was late, again, and I was sitting barefoot on our penthouse couch, scrolling through my tablet while the city pulsed beneath the windows like a living thing. Midnight traffic, neon veins, wolves hiding in suits. I was halfway through reorganizing our shared cloud drive when I saw a new folder. Pack Law, Revision 11.3. Cute. I smiled at first. My mate was meticulous like that. Organized. Brilliant. The kind of alpha who could dismantle a hostile takeover before breakfast and still remember my coffee order. I tapped the folder. Then I stopped smiling. Because my name was in the title of the first document. Omega Protection Clause, Mara Vale. Executed. Executed. Interesting word choice. I opened it. The language was clinical, polite, respectable. The kind of legal prose that pretends it's doing you a favor while quietly removing your spine. For the safety and well-being of the bonded Omega. Scroll. All financial accounts held by said Omega shall be managed by the alpha mate. Scroll. Reproductive decisions including fertility treatments, suppressants, and heats shall be regulated under alpha discretion. My throat tightened. Scroll. Set blockers, movement restrictions during heightened pack threat levels. I laughed. Actually laughed. A sharp, broken sound that bounced off marble and glass and died somewhere near the skyline. Because there it was, at the bottom, a neat little table. Asset classification, Omega, controlled alpha, owner executor. Owner. I stared at my reflection in the dark screen. Mara Vale, 32. Master's degree in regulatory compliance. Former auditor who specialized in finding the rot inside airtight systems. And legally speaking, I belonged to my husband. For your safety, I whispered aloud. The bond reacted. A faint pulse in my chest. Confusion, concern, warmth. Ethan wasn't home yet, but the mate link hummed softly, trying to soothe me like it always did. That almost hurt more, because the bond didn't feel malicious. It felt sincere. That was the worst part. I closed the contract carefully. No slammed doors, no screaming, no dramatic Omega breakdown. Instead, I stood, smoothed my shirt, and poured myself a glass of wine. Okay, I said to the empty penthouse. Let's play. When Ethan walked in 20 minutes later, loosening his tie with that tired, devastating smile that used to undo me, I kissed him like nothing was wrong. I even let him hold me. And when he whispered, "Long day," against my hair, I whispered back, "You have no idea." Mara knows. Ethan doesn't know she knows. And the contract has already started ticking. Ethan didn't notice the wine. That should have been my first clue. Normally, he commented on everything. What I drank, how late I stayed up, whether I'd eaten enough protein. Alpha instincts wrapped in concern, softened by affection. Tonight, His eyes slid right past the glass in my hand like it didn't exist, which meant he was already bracing. He kissed my cheek, shrugged out of his suit jacket, and loosened his tie with a practiced tug. Midnight blue fabric, custom fit. The uniform of a man who argued power into submission for a living. Long day, he said again, this time with weight. I leaned back against the counter. I saw the contract. There it was, the exact moment his shoulders went still. Not tense, not angry. Careful. Ethan turned slowly, like sudden movements might spook me, like I was something fragile, glass thin, already cracking. Mara, he said gently. I was going to talk to you about that. I took a sip of wine, let it burn. You listed me as a controlled asset. He exhaled, a controlled legal sigh. That's not what it means. Oh? I smiled sweetly. Because I used to audit regulatory language for a living, and it means exactly what it says. He reached for me. I stepped back. That finally did it. Confusion flickered through the bond, a low pulse of unease. Ethan frowned, not angry, just wounded. Why are you upset? He asked, genuinely baffled. This is for your safety. There it was, the phrase men like him loved most. For my safety, I repeated. You took my bank accounts. Managed, he corrected, temporarily. You took my reproductive rights. Protected, he said calmly, from outside pressure. My scent suppressants? Regulated. Mara, you know what happens when omegas go unmanaged during heightened threats. I laughed again, sharper this time. Unmanaged, I said. God, you really did rewrite pack law in your own image, didn't you? He moved closer, voice lowering. I represent pack interests in human courts. Do you know how exposed you are by association alone? Yes, I snapped. Because I'm not stupid. I never said you were. You didn't have to, I shot back. You just put me on a leash and called it love. That finally cracked something. Ethan's jaw tightened. I'm trying to protect you. By owning me? By shielding you, he said. More force now. You're my mate, my responsibility. I tilted my head, studied him. The man I married, the alpha I chose, the wolf who slept beside me every night, believing, truly believing, he was doing the right thing. Did you ever consider? I asked quietly. Asking me? Silence. That told me everything. He reached for my hand again, slower this time. Careful. If the council had gotten to you first. But they didn't, I said. You did. The bond pulsed hard now. Distress, confusion. Ethan felt it too. I could see it in his eyes, the way his wolf paced behind them, uncertain why the ground had shifted. I love you, he said, like it should fix everything. I didn't doubt that, which was the most dangerous part of all. Then why? I asked softly. Do I feel like I just discovered I married my own compliance risk? He flinched. Just a little. Enough. I finished my wine, set the glass down, and forced my shoulders to slump. Let my voice shake. Let the Omega mask slide into place. I don't know how to fight this, I said. You're the lawyer. You're the alpha. I don't have a choice, do I? Relief washed through him so fast, It almost made me sick. He stepped forward and wrapped his arms around me, pressing a kiss to my hair. "You don't need to fight," he murmured. "You just need to trust me." I went still in his arms and smiled, because trust, I knew very well, was exactly how people stopped reading the fine print. Ethan thinks she's broken. The bond believes him. And Mara has just decided to let them both be wrong.
The first sign the clause was already active came the next morning. It wasn't dramatic. No council raid, no silver cuffs, no burly enforcers kicking in my door with "For the Pack" tattooed across their foreheads like a warning label. It was a text message. "Bank alert. Your transfer has been declined. Please contact your account administrator." I stared at my phone while my coffee cooled. The city outside our windows looking deceptively normal. Commuters, taxis, glass towers catching the winter sun like polished knives. Declined. I tried again. Same result. I opened my banking app. The screen loaded, and a new name sat under Authorized Administrator. Ethan Rourke. My husband. My mate. My personal legal parasite. I blinked once, twice, then muttered, "Wow. Efficient. Emotionally devastating, but efficient." From the bedroom, Ethan called, "Everything okay?" My mouth answered before my brain could stop it. "Great!" Because I'd promised myself something last night in the dark, wrapped in his arms like a hostage in silk. No screaming, no rash moves, not until I had evidence, not until I had leverage, not until I had the one thing lawyers respected more than love: a documented trail. I made eggs, buttered toast, did all the normal wife things with a smile that felt stapled to my face. When Ethan came out, tie already on, sleeves rolled, hair still damp from the shower, he looked like a man heading to war. He kissed my temple. "You didn't sleep much." "I slept fine," I lied. The bond hummed between us, soft, warm, approving. The bond was a traitor like that. It loved him. It loved us. It didn't understand contracts or ownership language or the way my stomach twisted every time I looked at his hands and thought, those signed me away. Ethan poured coffee, glanced at his phone, and then casually said, "I moved a few things around last night." My fork paused midair. I kept my voice light. "A few things?" "Your accounts," he said. "Just administrative. It's temporary." "Temporary," I echoed, tasting blood. "Like a cage with a 'Be right back' sign." He frowned. "Mara?" I smiled wider. "I'm trying to be reasonable." That made him relax again. God. Men like him loved the word reasonable. It was their favorite leash. He took a sip of coffee. "Thank you. For not resisting. For being compliant. For saving him the inconvenience of my autonomy." I nodded like a good omega and said, "Of course." And while he ate, I watched him the way I used to watch corporations during audits, looking for the micro-hesitations, the silent tells, the tiny cracks in the story. Ethan was careful. Ethan was polished. But Ethan had one fatal flaw. He underestimated me in ways that weren't loud enough to notice until your life was already signed away. When he left, he kissed me long and slow, palm warm at my waist. "I'll be late again," he warned. "Save the world," I said. He smiled like I'd just told him he was my hero.
He didn't see the way my eyes hardened the second the door closed. The lock clicked, and my apartment, my beautiful, expensive, legally half-owned apartment, felt like a gilded enclosure. I walked to my home office and sat at my desk. My old laptop was in the bottom drawer. I hadn't touched it in years. Not since I left compliance auditing to focus on us, as Ethan liked to phrase it. Not since I'd traded late-night investigations for late-night dinners and a man who made love like devotion. I pulled the laptop out, opened it, and waited for the screen to glow to life. The wallpaper flashed, a joke meme from my old office days. "I love regulations," said no one, ever. I stared at it and felt something inside me settle into place. A familiar calm, the kind you only get when you stop being prey. I logged in. My archived folders loaded. Years of saved templates, audit checklists, encrypted correspondence, and, most importantly, my old contact list. People I trusted, people who owed me, people who hated Ethan. No, not Ethan specifically, what he represented. Pack lawyers who played both sides, alphas who treated omegas like bargaining chips, councils that hid behind tradition like it was a shield instead of a weapon. I opened a new document and typed a title. Operation, Fine Print. Then I pulled up Ethan's contract again, clause by clause, line by line. Every for her safety and in her best interest and pursuant to PAC law. I read it like an auditor reads an insurance policy, assuming deception until proven otherwise. And there, buried in the middle, was something that made my skin go cold. A subsection labeled 11.3, Heat Event Authorization. My heartbeat thudded once, twice. I scrolled. It outlined a protocol for my next heat, dates, conditions, medical oversight, and a signature line for a physician. Not just any physician. A PAC doctor. One with council authority. Meaning Ethan hadn't just locked down my money. He'd locked down my body, my choices, my future. I whispered, "Oh." Not shocked, not heartbroken, just impressed. Because it was worse than I thought. And Ethan didn't do worse unless someone had pushed him, unless something had changed, unless there was a threat so big he'd decided ownership was safer than partnership. My phone buzzed again. This time, not a bank alert. A pharmacy notification. Prescription update. Your refill request has been canceled. Contact your prescribing authority. My suppressants. Canceled. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I opened Ethan's contract, scrolled to the section labeled Scent Management Suppressant Control. And sure enough, there it was. Omega shall only obtain suppressants through alpha-managed supply channels. I leaned back in my chair and laughed softly. "Okay," I murmured to the empty room. "So we're doing this." I cracked my knuckles. Then I started making calls. The first person I contacted was the only one who'd ever scared Ethan in a room full of wolves. Not because he was alpha, because he was human. And humans didn't play by PAC rules. Darren Holt, Senior Compliance Investigator, State Regulatory Division. We'd worked together once on a corporate scandal that ended with 3 executives in handcuffs and a CEO crying on live television. He owed me. He picked up on the second ring. "Maravale," Darren said, voice dry as paperwork. "Either you're calling to invite me to a gala, or someone just committed a felony." I smiled. Both are possible. A pause. Then, talk. I looked out at the city again, at the towers, at the courts, at the polished world Ethan used like a chessboard. And I said, very softly, my husband wrote a contract that classifies his wife as property. Darren went quiet, then his tone sharpened. Excuse me? Oh, it's dressed up, I said. Lovely language, smells like protection, reads like ownership. You have a copy? I have several, I said, including the revision history. That got him. I could practically hear him sitting up straighter. Mara, he warned, if this is tied to underground organizations. It is, I said. But parts of it touch human banking systems, medical providers, and coercive control. He crossed lines. Real ones. Darren exhaled slowly. Send it. I closed my eyes, feeling something dark and bright unfurl in my chest. Not fear, not grief. Purpose. I will, I said. But I'm not asking you to arrest him. No? I opened Ethan's contract again and stared at the signature block. His name, his title, his certainty. I'm asking you, I said, to make him answer for every word. When I hung up, I didn't cry. I didn't throw things. I didn't collapse. I did what I'd always done when someone tried to bury poison inside policy. I built a case, and then I turned the system against them. I created a secure folder. Evidence. Rue key. I uploaded the contract. Then I started hunting for the cracks. Because there was always a crack. Even in the most beautiful lies. Especially in the ones signed with love.
The thing about contracts is that they lie politely. They don't scream, they don't threaten, they don't snarl the way wolves do when they mean harm. They smile, they nod. They use phrases like reasonable, necessary, and in the best interest of all parties, while quietly strangling whoever signed without reading past page 12. I knew this. I'd built an entire career on it. By noon, my dining table was covered in printed pages. Ethan's contract, prior revisions, cross-references to PAC bylaws, human statutory overlap, medical consent frameworks, banking authorization clauses. It looked less like a home and more like a war room. Good. I slipped my glasses on. Blue light filter, scratched lens, the kind Ethan hated because he said they made me look too serious. I smiled to myself. Perfect. I started with jurisdiction, because men like Ethan loved to pretend PAC law floated above human law like some ancient, untouchable fog. Sacred, separate, invisible unless you belonged. But he'd gotten sloppy. He always did when he thought he was the smartest wolf in the room. The Omega Protection Clause touched human financial institutions, state-licensed medical providers, and regulated pharmaceuticals, which meant it didn't matter what the PAC Council approved. Human law had opinions, very loud ones. I highlighted the first violation in yellow. Alpha Mate retains sole authority over Omega's financial assets. Cute. Except the accounts were joint only in marriage, not ownership. And the moment he reclassified me as an asset, he triggered half a dozen coercive control red flags under state law. Financial abuse, restricted access, unauthorized power of attorney. I opened a new file. Violation number 1, financial coercion, human statute.
Then I moved on to medical. That one made my jaw lock. The heat event authorization wasn't just morally disgusting, it was legally radioactive. PAC doctors were licensed through human boards, which meant informed consent wasn't optional. And consent signed under a contract that removed my financial and medical autonomy? Oh, Ethan, you beautiful, arrogant idiot. I drafted a memo outlining it cleanly, calmly, professionally. No emotion, no outrage, just facts sharp enough to cut glass. By the time my phone buzzed again, I'd logged 6 violations and 3 potential criminal exposures. The caller ID made me pause. Dr. Lena Moreau, PAC physician, council approved, and, until recently, my doctor. I answered on speaker. Mara, Lena said carefully, we need to talk. I leaned back in my chair. About my canceled suppressants? A beat. Yes. Did Ethan ask you to cancel them? Silence. That was answer enough. Lena, I said gently, did you receive written authorization? Yes, she said. From your mate. And from me? Another pause. No. I tapped my pen against the table. Then you violated medical consent law. Her breath caught. Mara, I'm not threatening you, I said. I'm informing you. I thought... She stopped herself. The clause is council approved. Council approval doesn't override state licensing, I replied. You know that. She did. That was the problem. What happens now? Lena asked quietly. I closed my eyes. I could hear the fear in her voice. Not guilt. Fear. Of Ethan, of the council, of being the first domino to fall. Now, I said, you document everything. Dates, requests, communications, and you stop complying with anything that doesn't have my explicit consent. And Ethan? I smiled without humor. Let me handle my husband. The call ended. I stared at my phone for a long moment. Then I added another entry. Violation number 7, medical consent breach. The list was getting long and delicious. By late afternoon, Darren called back. You weren't exaggerating, he said. I never do. This isn't just coercive control, he continued. It's structured, intentional. He built a framework. Yes, I said. He did. And? I prompted when he went quiet. And if this goes public, Darren said slowly, it won't stay underground. I pictured Ethan in court, in council chambers, in the glass towers where his name opened doors. Good. That's the idea, I said. Darren hesitated. Mara, once this starts, it won't stop. You'll lose protection. I laughed softly. I never had protection. I had a handler. He didn't argue. Before we hung up, he said, send me the audit package. I'll loop in financial crimes. I clicked send. The file whooshed away. And with it, the illusion that this could be contained. That night, Ethan came home earlier than usual. His wolf was restless. I could feel it through the bond, unease rippling like static under my skin. He kissed me, slower this time, studying. You okay? He asked. I curled into him, Let my scent soften. Let the omega mask hum. I'm trying, I said quietly. Relief flooded him. He held me tighter. I know this is hard, he murmured, but you're safe. I promise. I rested my cheek against his chest and listened to his heart. Strong, confident, still beating. For now. Ethan, I said softly, do you trust me? Of course, he answered instantly. I smiled into his shirt, because trust, once given, was very hard to take back. And I had just finished sharpening the blade it rested on.
The leak didn't explode. That was the first mistake everyone made when they told stories about exposure. They expected fire. What they got was paperwork, which, frankly, was worse. It started with a request, a polite one. An email from a state compliance office sent at 9:03 a.m. on a Tuesday, stamped Confidential Information Request, and addressed directly to Rourke and Hale LLP. Subject line: Clarification of Asset Management Authority, Mara Vale. I was sitting at the kitchen counter, sipping tea, when Ethan read it on his tablet. I felt the shift in him through the bond before he spoke. Confusion first, then irritation, then, just faintly, alarm. That's strange, he muttered. I didn't look up. What is? He hesitated, and in that hesitation, I knew. They're asking about your accounts, he said carefully. Routine audit stuff. I hummed. Sounds boring. He studied me. You didn't contact anyone, did you? I met his eyes, let my expression be open, hurt, mildly offended. Why would I do that? The bond smoothed over, satisfied. He relaxed. Right, he said. Of course. He kissed my forehead and left for work early. The email wasn't routine. It was the canary. By noon, Darren texted me. They bit. Finance crimes looped in. Stay calm. I smiled into my mug. The second request came from a medical board. The third from a banking compliance officer who'd apparently never heard of PAC law and didn't care to start now. By the end of the day, Ethan's firm was fielding inquiries from 3 agencies that all shared one ugly question. Why is a licensed attorney managing his spouse's finances and medical decisions under a framework that resembles coercive control? Titles didn't matter, not in a human court. That night, Ethan came home furious. Not at me, at the world. They're overreaching, he snapped, pacing the living room. They don't understand PAC structure. I sat curled on the couch, blanket around my shoulders, looking appropriately small. Is it bad? I asked. He stopped pacing instantly, softened. No, he said quickly. No, I've handled worse. He had, but never this. Because this wasn't a hostile corporation or a rival alpha trying to muscle in. This was his own work being held up to the light. Why would they even care? I asked gently. He rubbed his temples. Because someone framed it wrong. I tilted my head. Wrong how? Like ownership, he said. Like abuse. There it was, the word he didn't want to say. I reached for his hand. You're not abusing me. I know, he said, gripping my fingers. You know. I smiled faintly, and in that moment, I almost believed him. Almost.
The first public crack appeared 2 days later. A legal blog. Small readership, mostly law nerds and compliance junkies. Title: When Protection Becomes Control. A spousal asset case to watch. No names, no PAC references, just hypotheticals.
But Ethan read it twice, jaw tight, wolf snarling just under the surface. "They're fishing," he said. "For what?" I asked. "For a test case," he snapped. "They want to see if spousal authority can cross into regulated consent." "And?" I prompted. He exhaled sharply. "And if they decide it can't?" He didn't finish. He didn't have to. The underground didn't stay underground for long once humans started digging. That night, my phone buzzed with a number I hadn't seen in years. Unknown caller. I answered. "Mara Vale," a voice said smoothly. "This is Counselor Ashford." Pack Council. High tier. Dangerous. I moved into the bedroom and closed the door. "Yes," I said. "You've caused quite a stir," Ashford said. "Human regulators asking about internal governance is inconvenient." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said politely. A pause. Then, sharper. "Your mate's authority is under review." My pulse skipped. Not fear. Anticipation. "On what grounds?" I asked. "Conflict of interest," Ashford said. "Misuse of alpha prerogative." I leaned against the wall. "And my position?" Another pause. Then, "Unclear." Translation? Contested. Negotiable. "Counselor," I said, "I didn't write the clause." "No," he agreed. "But you are the omega at its center." I closed my eyes. "Be careful," he warned. "You are protected only as long as this remains internal." I smiled to myself. "It's already not," I said. The silence on the line was delicious. When he spoke again, his voice was colder. "Then you leave us little choice." "Funny," I replied. "I was thinking the same." The call ended. I stood there for a long moment, heart steady, mind clear. The board was set. Human law on one side, pack authority on the other. And Ethan standing in the middle, still believing love would shield him from consequence. When he came to bed later, he wrapped an arm around me like a habit, like a promise, like a man who didn't yet realize the ground beneath him had already been rezoned. The first attempt to silence me came disguised as concern. It arrived in the form of flowers, white lilies, moon-blessed, expensive, delivered to the penthouse with a handwritten card embossed in silver. "For your peace. The Council." I stared at them for a long moment before laughing. "Wow," I murmured. "Even the threats smell nice." Ethan was already gone for the day. Meetings, emergency sessions. Clarifications. He hadn't slept much. The bond felt stretched thin, vibrating with the kind of pressure that came from being watched by people who expected obedience. I didn't touch the flowers. Instead, I checked the security feed. 2 unfamiliar men had escorted the courier into the building. Wolves. Old-school pack muscle pretending to be building security. I logged the footage, time-stamped it, and uploaded it to my secure folder. Evidence. Intimidation. Attempt number 1. By noon, the second move landed. My phone buzzed with a council summons. Not a request, a summons.
Mandatory appearance. Pack Council. Subject: Omega Welfare Review. I read it twice, then once more, slowly. They weren't calling Ethan. They were calling me. I sat very still, fingers resting on the edge of the table, feeling the bond stir uneasily. Ethan's wolf paced somewhere far away, irritated, defensive. He hadn't told me about this, which meant one of two things. Either the council hadn't informed him yet, or they had, and he'd agreed to let them handle me. That one stung. I forwarded the summons to Darren. "This is escalation," he texted back almost immediately. "Do not attend alone." Oh, I had no intention of being alone. The council chambers were underground, literally and figuratively. Old tunnels beneath the city courthouse, renovated just enough to pass as historic storage to human eyes. Stone walls, frosted lights, power that liked to pretend it was ancient and inevitable. I arrived an hour later in a tailored gray suit and low heels, hair pulled back, scent neutral, suppressants still active, for now. 2 guards flanked the doors. No Ethan. Interesting. Inside, 5 counselors sat in a semicircle, Ashford in the center, smug, controlled, predatory in the way men got when they believed the rules would always favor them. "Mara Vale," Ashford said. "Thank you for coming." "I was summoned," I replied. It would have been rude not to. A flicker of irritation crossed his face. "Sit," he instructed. I didn't. "I'd prefer to stand," I said. "This is an Omega Welfare Review, correct?" "Yes," another counselor said. "We're concerned about your emotional stability." I laughed. Actually laughed. "You canceled my medication, restricted my finances, and classified me as property," I said. "And now you're concerned about my emotions?" Ashford leaned forward. "You've attracted human attention." "Because my husband wrote a bad contract," I said calmly. "That's not hysteria. That's cause and effect." "This stays within the pack," Ashford snapped. I tilted my head. "You don't have jurisdiction over state regulators." Silence. Then Ashford smiled. That was when I knew they'd decided I was a problem. "You forget your place," he said softly. "No," I replied. "I found it." I reached into my bag and placed a tablet on the table. One tap. The screen lit up. Surveillance footage, email chains, medical authorizations, banking changes. "Any further interference," I said, voice steady, "will be documented and forwarded to human authorities as retaliation and witness intimidation." A counselor shifted uncomfortably. Ashford's smile thinned. "You'd bring human courts down on us?" "I already have," I said. "You're just late to the meeting." The door behind me opened. Ethan stepped in. His wolf hit the room like a storm. "Mara," he said sharply, "what is this?" I turned to him, and for the first time since all this began, I let him see the truth in my eyes. "This," I said quietly, "is what happens when you put your wife on a contract." The council watched us like spectators at a blood sport. Ashford cleared his throat. "Alpha Rourke, your authority is provisionally suspended pending review." Ethan froze. "What?" His voice was low, dangerous. "Effective immediately," Ashford continued. You are not to exercise alpha prerogative over your mate. The bond shuddered. Not broken, but strained. Ethan looked at me like he'd never seen me before. And maybe he hadn't. Because the Omega standing there wasn't owned. She was armed.
Ethan didn't touch me on the way home. That was how I knew he was angry. Not the explosive kind, not the kind that shattered glass or raised voices. This was the quiet, lethal fury of a man whose authority had just been questioned in front of witnesses. The bond between us felt muted, not severed, just restrained, like a blade kept deliberately sheathed. We rode the elevator in silence. 40 floors. Not a word. When the doors opened, Ethan walked ahead of me into the penthouse like it still belonged to him. I let him. He paced the living room once, twice. Then he turned. What the hell was that? I set my bag down calmly. A welfare review. You blindsided me. No, I corrected. You underestimated me. His jaw tightened. You brought human regulators into pack business. You brought pack control into human law, I said. We can compare sins later. He dragged a hand through his hair, wolf flashing in his eyes. They suspended my alpha authority. Provisionally, I said. Words matter. They humiliated me. I crossed my arms. You humiliated yourself when you signed my autonomy away like office furniture. Silence cracked between us. Then he laughed. Not humor, disbelief. You think this is funny? No, I said softly. I think it's educational. He stopped laughing. You're playing a dangerous game, he said. The council doesn't lose. Neither do compliance auditors, I replied. We just make sure everyone else does. He stared at me, really stared, like he was recalibrating. Mara, he said slowly. Who helped you? I raised an eyebrow. Does it matter? Yes, he said, because this clause didn't come from nowhere. My pulse ticked up. That was new. What do you mean? He hesitated. Then, finally, he told the truth. They came to me first, he said. The council, Ashford, 2 months ago. I felt something cold slide down my spine. They said there was chatter, he continued. Human agencies sniffing around pack finances, Omega trafficking allegations, consent violations. They needed safeguards. Safeguards, I echoed. They wanted a test case, he admitted. A compliant Omega, a stable marriage, someone they could point to and say, see, this is protection. My hands curled into fists. And you volunteered me. I thought... He stopped, swallowed. I thought if I controlled it, I could keep you safe. Safe. Always that word. So you didn't do this to me, I said quietly. You did it for them. Ethan flinched. They pressured me, he said. Threatened sanctions, reduced authority. They said if I didn't cooperate, they'd assign a handler. A handler, I repeated, disbelief sharpening my voice. Like I'm unstable. They framed it as support. I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. So let me get this straight, I said. The council wanted a precedent. You wanted control. And I was supposed to smile while you both experimented on my life. That's not fair. Oh, it's extremely fair, I cut in.
You just don't like how it sounds out loud. He stepped closer. I love you. I know, I said. That's what makes this unforgivable. The bond pulsed then, hard, painful, confused. His wolf pushed, seeking dominance, reassurance, forgiveness. I didn't yield. For the first time since we'd mated, I held my ground. Mara, he said hoarsely, if the council loses this, they'll make an example of someone. I met his gaze. They already are. He followed my eyes to the tablet on the table, open, recording. His breath caught. How long? He asked. Long enough, I said. And don't worry, human law loves whistleblowers. You're destroying everything, he whispered. No, I corrected gently. I'm revealing it. The door buzzer sounded, sharp, insistent. Ethan stiffened. I checked the security feed. Council security. 3 men. Ashford in the center. The intercom crackled to life. Alpha Rourke! Ashford's voice echoed through the penthouse, smooth as oil. You are formally charged with breach of fiduciary duty to your mate. I looked at Ethan. Really looked. The powerful alpha attorney. The man who thought love could coexist with ownership. The wolf who'd finally realized the pack he served would eat him alive. Your move, I said softly. Ashford didn't knock. He never did. Power didn't knock. It entered and expected the room to adjust. The council security detail spread out the moment the doors opened, boots quiet on marble, eyes scanning like predators cataloging threats. Wolves in suits. Wolves with badges that meant nothing outside the tunnels they ruled. Ethan stepped forward instinctively. Alpha reflex. Get out, he growled. Ashford smiled like a man enjoying theater. You're in no position to give orders. I felt it then. The bond react in a sharp, panicked twist. Ethan's wolf slammed against the suspension like it was a physical barrier. He tried to assert, tried to command. Nothing happened. That was new. That was terrifying. Ashford lifted a tablet. By authority of the Pack Council, effective immediately, Ethan Rourke is stripped of alpha prerogative pending final adjudication. The words landed heavy. Final. Adjudication. Ethan's breath hitched. I'd seen him in courtrooms under pressure. Seen him dismantle hostile witnesses and hostile packs alike with nothing but a voice and a look. I'd never seen him powerless. What does that mean? Ethan demanded, even as his wolf bucked uselessly. Ashford didn't look at him. He looked at me. It means, Ashford said smoothly, that until this matter is resolved, all authority over you, financial, medical, and bond-related, reverts to the council. My stomach dropped. Oh, that was the play. They weren't here for Ethan. They were here for me. I stepped forward before Ethan could speak. You don't have jurisdiction. Ashford's smile sharpened. We do, under Pack law. And Pack law doesn't override human law, I said calmly. Which is why this conversation is being recorded. One of the guards shifted. Ashford's eyes flicked to the tablet in my hand. I tapped the screen. Red dot blinking. Live. Everything you say from this moment forward, I continued, is admissible, including intimidation, retaliation, and attempted reassignment of autonomy. Ethan stared at me. Not confused, not angry, Odd. Ashford recovered quickly. You would expose pack governance to human courts? You already did, I replied. When you asked my husband to draft ownership language and run it through regulated systems. A beat. Then Ashford laughed. You think humans will save you? No, I said. I think they'll investigate you. He stepped closer. You're an Omega. And you're underestimating me, I shot back. Again. The air crackled. The guards tensed. Ashford turned to Ethan at last. This didn't have to end like this. Ethan's voice was rough. You used my wife. Ashford shrugged. You offered her. That one broke something. Not in me. In Ethan. His shoulders slumped just slightly. His wolf went quiet. Not submissive, but stunned. Like it had finally understood it had been betrayed by its own pack.
I did what I thought was right, Ethan said hoarsely.
Ashford leaned in. You did what you were told. I stepped between them. That's enough. Ashford's eyes narrowed. You don't give orders here. No, I agreed. But I do make records. I swiped my tablet. The screen mirrored onto the wall-sized display Ethan used for legal briefings. Emails, messages, calendar invites. Ashford's name highlighted. His voice, his pressure, his instructions. The room went very still. That's extortion, I said softly. And conspiracy. And coercive control. All documented. Ashford's smile vanished. You wouldn't dare. I met his gaze. Watch me. Ethan's head snapped toward me. Mara, I know, I said quietly. But this ends now. Ashford straightened. If you do this, you sever yourself from pack protection. I laughed. Protection, I said. Is that what you call ownership? The guards shifted again, uncertain now. Ashford's authority was slipping, and everyone in the room could feel it. He turned sharply. Remove the alpha. Two guards stepped toward Ethan. I felt the bond scream. No, I said loudly. You don't touch him. Ashford scoffed. You don't control. I control the narrative. I cut in. And if you lay a hand on him, the next thing that leaks won't be a contract. It'll be names. That stopped them. Ashford stared at me. Really stared. Like he was finally seeing the shape of the threat I posed. You're dangerous, he said. I smiled. You made me that way. He lifted his hand, slowly, deliberately. The guards stopped. For now, Ashford said. This isn't over. I know, I replied. But it's no longer yours. They left without another word. The doors closed. Silence fell like a held breath. Ethan sagged against the counter, hands braced, breathing hard. I moved to him instinctively, then stopped. He looked up at me, eyes raw. They took everything. No, I said gently. They took what you borrowed from them. His laugh was broken. I don't know who I am without it. I studied him. The man I loved. The man who failed me. The man who was finally, truly stripped. Then you get to decide, I said. For the first time in your life.
The story didn't break with a headline. It broke with a filing. At 8:42 a.m. on a Thursday, A redacted complaint hit the public docket under a name so boring it almost felt like a joke. Vale v. Rourke. Petition for declaratory relief. No pack names, no wolf language, no supernatural anything. Just a woman challenging a contract. That was the brilliance of it. Humans didn't need to believe in packs to believe in abuse. I watched the docket refresh from my home office, coffee untouched, fingers steady on the mouse. Darren had warned me it would move fast once it went public. He hadn't been kidding. Within an hour, legal Twitter was whispering. Within 3, journalists were calling. Within 6, Ethan's firm released a statement so carefully worded, it might as well have been written by a hostage negotiator. Rourke and Hale LLP affirms its commitment to ethical practice and denies any wrongdoing. I snorted. Ethan sat across from me at the table, shoulders hunched, suit jacket discarded. He hadn't shaved, hadn't slept. The bond between us felt raw now, exposed, stripped of its comforting haze. "They're crucifying me," he said quietly. "No," I replied. "They're questioning you." He looked up, eyes hollow. "Same thing in my world." "Then welcome to mine," I said. His phone buzzed again, another counsel alert. He ignored it. For the first time, he let it ring. By noon, the second filing dropped. Motion to enjoin third-party interference. That one named names. Medical providers, banking institutions, unidentified private governance entities. Translation? Pack Council. That's when the tone changed. Because now, it wasn't just about marriage or contracts. It was about shadow governance. A reporter from a national outlet called Darren at 12:17. By 12:45, an editor was requesting comment on private organizations exerting coercive control over spouses through legal proxies. By 1:30, the phrase Omega Protection Clause was trending in exactly the wrong circles. Ethan watched it unfold like a slow-motion car crash. "They'll never forgive you," he said. "I didn't ask them to," I replied. A knock came at the door. Sharp. Official. I checked the camera. Human law enforcement. 2 officers. Plain clothes. Calm. I opened the door. "Mara Vale?" one asked. "Yes?" "We have a few questions regarding coercive financial control." I stepped aside. "Come in." Ethan stood up. "I'm her attorney," he said automatically. The officer shook his head. "Not in this matter, sir." That one landed hard. I almost felt bad. Almost. They asked questions. I answered, calmly, clearly, with documentation. I watched Ethan realize, minute by minute, that this wasn't a pack problem anymore. It was a human one. And humans didn't negotiate with titles. They investigated. After they left, Ethan sank back into his chair. "They'll disbar me," he whispered. "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe they'll reform the system you helped build." He looked at me like he didn't recognize me. "You planned this." "Yes." "You let me think you were helpless." I met his gaze. "You let me be helpless." The bond pulsed painfully. Regret, grief, love, still there, stubborn and unwanted. "I never meant to hurt you," he said. "I know," I replied. "You just didn't mean to listen, either." His phone buzzed again. This time he answered. Ashford's voice crackled through the speaker, stripped of its polish. "You've crossed a line."
Ashford snapped. Ethan closed his eyes. No, I said, leaning in so my voice carried. We crossed into daylight. A pause. Then Ashford laughed bitterly. You think exposure is power? I smiled. I think contracts don't survive scrutiny, I said, and neither do counsels that hide behind them. You'll burn everything, he warned. I tilted my head. Only what deserves it. The call ended. Ethan stared at me. You're going to destroy the pack, he said. No, I corrected softly. I'm going to make it choose. Silence settled. Heavy. Final. Outside, sirens wailed somewhere far away. The world kept turning. And somewhere beneath it, an underground council realized its secrets were no longer safe. The council didn't go quietly. They never did. When you'd ruled from the shadows for generations, you didn't step into the light and apologize. You tightened your grip. You made examples. You reminded everyone why fear had worked so well for so long. Their last stand came wrapped in ceremony. An emergency convocation. All alphas, all bonded omegas. Mandatory attendance. Ethan got the notice first. His phone buzzed once, then again. Then his tablet lit up with the same message. Pack convocation, final adjudication. Subject, Omega Vale, Alpha Rourke. I felt the bond jolt. Not panic. Recognition. They're going to try to end this, Ethan said quietly. They already did, I replied. They just don't know it yet. The convocation was held in the old chamber beneath the courthouse, stone, iron, and tradition stacked like a tomb. Wolves filled the space, shoulder to shoulder, scents clashing, tension thick enough to taste. Whispers followed us in. She's the one. That's Rourke. He lost his authority. She's human-facing. I held my head high. If they wanted a spectacle, I'd give them one. Ashford stood at the center dais, face tight, voice booming. This convocation is called to restore order, he declared. The Omega known as Mara Vale has violated pack secrecy and endangered us all. Murmurs rippled. I stepped forward. Incorrect, I said clearly. I challenged a contract. Gasps. Ethan's hand twitched at his side. Ashford sneered. You defied Alpha authority. I questioned it, I corrected. There's a difference. Human courts understand that distinction very well. Ashford raised his hand. Silence! No one obeyed. That was new. I turned, scanning the room. Omegas, betas, even a few alphas watching with something like curiosity, hope. Ashford saw it too. You think this is about you? He snapped. This is about survival. I laughed softly. If your survival requires ownership, maybe it deserves extinction. That did it. By authority of the council, Ashford thundered, Ethan Rourke is permanently stripped of Alpha title. The room went still. Ethan exhaled slowly. Then, something remarkable happened. He stepped forward. I accept. Gasps echoed. Ashford froze. What? I accept the stripping, Ethan said, because I earned it. The bond flared, pain, grief, and something else. Relief. But, Ethan continued, voice steady, I reject your authority over my mate. Ashford snarled. You have no standing. I do, Ethan said, as a husband who failed, and who will not fail again. I stared at him. Really stared. This was the first time he'd chosen me over the pack. Publicly. Ashford turned to me. Then you leave us no choice. Guards moved. I raised my tablet. Before you do that, I said calmly, you should know something. I tapped the screen. Live stream. Thousands of viewers, lawyers, journalists, advocates. The chamber erupted. Ashford's face drained of color. You wouldn't dare. Already did, I replied. Ethan's breath hitched. I met his eyes. I promised you I wouldn't destroy everything, I said softly. Just the parts that tried to own me. Ashford backed away from the dais. The council's power cracked audibly in the room, like stones splitting under pressure. This convocation is adjourned, Ashford barked. No, I said. It's documented. The wolves didn't stop us as we walked out. They parted, not in fear, in acknowledgement. Outside, the city lights glowed like a promise. Ethan stopped on the steps. I don't have anything left, he said. I took his face in my hands. Yes, you do, I said. You have a choice. The bond didn't heal overnight. That was the first thing Ethan learned when we stopped pretending love alone could fix damage written in ink. We didn't go home. We went to my office instead, the smaller one, the one Ethan had never liked. No glass walls, no skyline view. Just solid walls, a scarred desk, and a locking door that didn't care who you were married to. I set my bag down and powered on my laptop. Ethan stood in the doorway like a man waiting to be sentenced. You don't have to do this, he said quietly. Yes, I replied without looking up. I do. He swallowed. You could leave. I paused then, turned to face him. I could, I agreed. But leaving wouldn't fix what you broke. It would just prove you were right to think I was something that needed managing. He flinched. Good. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. Sit. He obeyed immediately. That was new, too. I opened a fresh document. Blank page, white screen. Infinite possibility. Title: Bond Agreement. Revised. Ethan's breath stuttered. You're rewriting the bond? I'm rewriting the rules, I said. The bond will survive or it won't, but it will never own me again. I began to type. Clause 1. Mutual consent. No decision affecting bodily autonomy, finances, fertility, scent regulation, or movement shall be made unilaterally by either party. Ethan nodded once. Hard. Clause 2. Independent authority. Both parties retain independent legal, medical, and financial representation. Clause 3. Breach consequences. If either party attempts coercive control under the guise of protection, the bond enters automatic suspension pending review. He looked up sharply. You can suspend a bond? Not traditionally, I said. But tradition isn't law. I typed faster now. The old calm settled over me, the one I got when systems finally made sense. Clause after clause. Choice, transparency, termination rights. This wasn't a love letter. It was a shield. When I finished, I turned the laptop toward him. Read it. He did. Slowly, carefully, like a man handling glass. By the end, his hands were shaking. You're giving yourself an exit, he said. I'm giving myself agency, I corrected. The exit is optional.
He met my eyes.
And me?
I held his gaze. You're being given the chance to stay, I said. Not as my alpha, not as my owner, as my partner. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Honest. Then Ethan reached into his jacket and pulled out a pen. Not the engraved Alpha Signet pen. A plain one. Black ink. I'll sign, he said hoarsely. Read the last clause first, I said. He did. Final provision. This agreement supersedes PAC law, alpha prerogative, and traditional bond hierarchy. He looked up. They'll exile us. Maybe, I said. Or maybe they'll adapt. And if they don't? I smiled faintly. Then they'll become irrelevant. Ethan swallowed. Then he signed. His hand shook, not from fear of me, from the weight of what he was giving up. The bond reacted instantly. Not snapping, not resisting. Rebalancing. It felt like pressure releasing from my chest, like finally standing upright after years of being bent. I closed my eyes, breathed. For the first time since I'd found the contract, I felt whole. Ethan let the pen fall from his fingers. I don't know who I am without the PAC, he whispered. I stood, walked around the desk, and took his hands. Then you get to find out, I said. Like the rest of us. 3 months later, I read the final judgment over coffee. Human court. Dry language. Beautiful consequences. The Omega Protection Clause was declared unenforceable. Third-party interference by private governance entities was formally enjoined. Multiple regulatory investigations remain ongoing. Translation? The PAC Council lost. Quietly. Permanently. They didn't collapse in fire or blood. They fractured, reformed, scrambled to survive in a world that had learned how to look for them. That was fine. Systems that relied on silence always did. Ethan wasn't disbarred. He resigned. Publicly, voluntarily. He issued a statement that was short, honest, and devastating. I mistook control for care. I was wrong. I am stepping away. The firm imploded within weeks. Partners fled. Clients followed. The name Rourke stopped opening doors. Ethan took a job no one expected. Compliance consulting. He laughed when he told me. I figured I should learn how to dismantle the systems I helped build. I watched him from across our kitchen table. Smaller place now, more sunlight, fewer locks, and felt something soft and strange bloom in my chest. Respect. We stayed married. Not because the bond demanded it, because we chose it. Every morning. Sometimes the bond still stuttered. Old instincts brushing up against new rules. But it adjusted. Learned. Adapted. Turns out, magic wasn't rigid. It evolved. The council tried to contact me once more. An invitation. A dialogue. I declined. Not angrily, just finally uninterested. I didn't need their approval. I had my name back, my money back, my body back. And the last contract I ever signed? It sat framed on my office wall. Bond agreement, revised. Signed by 2 equal parties. No ownership clauses. No fine print. Sometimes clients asked about it. I smiled and said, "It's a reminder." Of what? That love doesn't need enforcement. Ethan stood behind me once,
reading it over my shoulder. "Would you do it again?" he asked quietly. I didn't hesitate. "Yes," I said. "Because next time, I'll read the contract first." If you believe love should never come with ownership, if you think power should always be negotiable, subscribe, share, and comment below. Would you have left? Or rewritten the rules like Mara? Because fate only traps the people who don't read the fine print.